Mrs. Dodds, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioner. I am deeply disturbed by the content and tone of some of the contributions to this debate today. As direct talks between Israel and the Palestinian Authority make a faltering start, I would urge this House to be cautious in its remarks at a time of great sensitivity in the Middle East. From the experience of my own constituency of Northern Ireland, I can testify as to the fragility of such talks. Outside interference is often counterproductive and destabilising to progress. This is all the more acute when considering the indiscriminate attack last week, killing 4 Israeli citizens, and I am sure Members would join in condemning that attack and indeed commending Israel for their commitment to the talks. Turning to the legislation, we should acknowledge that Israel's government has worked with its parliament in addressing concerns. The bill that will progress through the Knesset has seen significant changes. These changes exemplify Israeli democracy in action and a responsiveness to reasonable and measured criticism. The remaining measures are focused upon applying the principles of openness, accountability and transparency upon the NGO sector. NGOs across the world regularly advocate these as key principles for a healthy public life in a democratic society. Furthermore, the requirement that foreign government support should be acknowledged in public advertising campaigns and websites is comparable with the EU funding requirement to acknowledge and promote the receipt of EU funding. And I would suggest that this makes the opposition of NGOs and some within this Parliament to such proposals both illogical and hypocritical. This debate represents interference in the internal affairs of a state that is outside of its membership and on a matter which is already being addressed. Many in Israel will conclude that the motivation for it is born out of anti-Israeli settlement. And at a time of peace negotiations, we should be a source of encouragement to those negotiators. Thank you.
Mrs. Dodds, there is a blue card, which means that someone wants to ask you a question for 30 seconds, and then you have 30 seconds to reply. Do you accept the question?
Thank you, Mrs. Dodds. Would the honourable member accept that she is relatively new to this House, and some of us who have been here a remarkably long time already, it seems, have actually been through a number of Israeli-Palestinian direct peace negotiations and have found that keeping quiet does not necessarily contribute to the process whatsoever?
Of course will accept that I am relatively new to this House, but I would also expect the honourable member to actually recognise that I am not new to situations of conflict and in dealing with a situation of terrorism within my own constituency of Northern Ireland. I have indeed personal experience of such terrorism, and I would actually say that having taken part in negotiations which have led to a more peaceful democratic future for my people in Northern Ireland, my experience is that outside interference, and particularly very skewed outside interference, is both wrong and unhelpful. Thank you.